Hello, it is Sunday, February 7th, 2021, and you're listening to the PoGo Weekly Digest on PoGo POC, Politics and Government for People of Color. My watch is currently telling me that I should be breathing. I feel it pulsating, but I'm not going to. Instead, I'm going to check in with the panel and see how everybody's doing. Joining us on the East Coast is Vega, and on the West Coast is Beacon. Greg is currently freezing in his apartment, and so he's trying to figure that out and stay warm. For those of us that aren't in the Midwest, it is 0 degrees and it feels like it's negative 14. So it's a little bit cold, just a little bit, for all of us here. But how is everybody doing? Vega, how are you? You're muted. Let's see. Boop. Still shows you as muted. Let me see if there's something I can do. No, it says it's muted on your end. How are you, Beacon?
I mean, I'm doing okay. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that we can't hear Vega right now. But
Yeah,
I'm doing
I'm
all
trying to
right.
see if I have them muted, but I'm not seeing. Let's see. It says you muted yourself. Can't hear you, Vega. This is funny because a minute ago everything was working fine, and of course now that everything's live, it's like doesn't work. There you are. I see mic movement.
Oh my god! I don't know what the hell happened.
That's okay. How are you, Vega?
Tired.
I'm good now that the technical difficulties are over.
Yeah, for now.
So yeah, for now. I just recently moved, so I'm still getting my bearings. I'm still settling in. So that's been the biggest thing, the big hurdle of the week for me. So that's been where all my focus has been.
And Beacon, how are you? You said you were doing good.
Yeah, I'm doing well. Duke and I spent a lot of the weekend looking at different wedding venues, which was very
Oh,
exciting.
that's exciting.
Ooh.
And
Yeah.
did you find like a potential, or were they all like scrubs?
Yeah, no, we did find a couple that are potential. So one of the ideas that we are looking at for a wedding venue is having a wedding at a house, at a home, and one that is
Mhm.
big enough that you can actually have a ceremony and a reception at, and then um, we would stay there, obviously, and then we would also invite friends and family to stay there as well. And so it's very much a casual, uh, fun environment. And then also when all of like the family and the heteros leave, then all the queers get to be queer as fuck, which
Fun times.
so that's the
That's when the
idea.
fun
So
times
that
begin.
is exactly. So that's one of the things. So we saw a couple houses that would fit that, and then there was one house that we like. There was like a gate at the beginning of the property, so we weren't even able to see what the house was. But yeah, for the most
Of
part, it was
course.
fun.
So without disclosing too many wedding
Aw.
details, is it going to be like an
Yeah.
outdoor wedding, or is the wedding going to be inside of one of the spaces of the house, or is that too much
So it would
detail
be
to
outdoors.
disclose?
No, that's fine. No, we're planning on it being an outdoor wedding. Not to rub it in, but in California we don't really have to deal with 0 degree weather. And so if you're having a wedding in California, you kind of want to enjoy California. So that's
Yeah.
that's kind of what we're going for. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not allowed to speak about the weather in California during the winter months that we do this. because let me tell you, it doesn't feel
You mean
good.
you don't want to talk about the fact that
So
it's above 50 degrees?
That's right, exactly.
or that it's 70 degrees. Like
Oh
we
my
don't have
God.
winter, so I don't understand the concept of winter. So should I just like not talk about the weather at
Yeah,
all?
don't talk about the weather. You know,
Okay.
it's one of the biggest thing I have with my West Coast peeps is they often forget the time difference. So they're either texting me when it's really late here or really early, or they always talk about the weather, and I'm just like, fuck all of you.
Yeah, yeah.
No, but
It's okay.
Freddie. What then we get to like at least for me, when people tell me about the nice weather that they're experiencing, it makes me just imagine that I'm there and that I'm not experiencing what I'm currently experiencing right now, and that one day I'll get to experience it for myself.
Yeah, I don't feel that at all.
And that's fine. You can continue to say fuck off, and I'll just continue fucking off here in California. Hand is gorgeous weather, so that's fine.
Jokes on me on that one, huh?
Congratulations, you played yourself.
You played yourself. um, Winter sucks, y'all. Let me tell you. I don't know. The people that watch Winter is brutal. Today I woke up and like it felt cold in the apartment, and then everything outside freezes. Like I walked outside and my mustache had frozen. I was like, this is for the birds. Forget this. But I told Beacon earlier this morning that they were in my dreams, and so hopefully that was the future manifesting itself by a dream that I'll move in California soon, and that Beacon and I will be neighbors, and then I too will be logging on in 70-degree weather from my backyard, talking about how it's cold and it's only 60 degrees. So I'm glad everybody's doing. Yesterday or last week was an off week, but let's get into it. There's a lot going on, and one of the biggest things is the impeachment trial is slated to begin tomorrow. Is it tomorrow? Yeah, tomorrow. The 8th. Yes. It's slated to begin tomorrow, and so Donald Trump is up for his second impeachment trial. There was a little bit of a hiccup. Well, a big hiccup, I would assume. His almost the entirety of the main legal team that was going to represent him at the second impeachment trial vamoosed. They were like, I'm out of here. Don't want any parts of this. And he had to appoint 3 new lawyers. But before they even got to tomorrow, which is the actual impeachment trial to convict him, there was a procedural vote that was pushed by Rand Paul. And in that vote, only 10 Republicans voted, and that was a procedural vote on whether or not the impeachment trial was actually constitutional, because Donald Trump is no longer in office. Of course, across the boards on the Democratic side, everybody voted that it was constitutional. Only 10 Republicans said that it was constitutional. That would not give them the 17 vote threshold that they would need from the Republican side in order to actually convict Trump. So let's start there. Let's start with, Trumpy pants and the impeachment trial. It looks like they wanted him to testify, but his legal team has said that they are not going to testify. And then they also have they've said repeatedly that they're going to avoid any election fraud talk, which I'm curious as to how they're going to accomplish that. But Vega, what are your thoughts on impeachment round 2? It was around this time last year that the impeachment trial part 1 was happening for Trump. So how are you feeling? What are your thoughts? You think it's a whole show?
I think it's a hoax.
Okay, you've been hanging around too many red hats.
No. Oh God, hell no. No. I keep them far away from me. Thank you very much. No, I think that, so from what I understand, one of the reasons why his legal team left was because he kept insisting on basing his legal defense around the fact that the election was stolen from him, and having him testify, he would strictly only speak on that, which their legal team was advising against, but clearly he didn't like it, so they left. I do wish we could have Trump testify, because just the amount of what's the term, the amount of implications he's going to lay on himself through that would be great to watch and very cathartic, because now you can't really escape from that, because the government holds the law over what. I don't know where I'm going with that. Anyways, all of that, I just I kind of wish he was going to be testifying. I don't know how this is going to go, because as we're seeing right now, the Republicans are having a little bit of an identity crisis, where they're trying to either lean into the crazy QAnon people or, stay true to whatever, they're supposed to represent. And depending on, I guess, where the meter lays on the data in which they have to make the vote, we could see two different outcomes. You can have, a decision on the Republican Party to decide, hey, we need to throw him under the bus in order to survive. And then you'll see it that way. Or you'll have the situation where, of course, like right now, where it's only going to be the 10 Republicans that are going to be listening to the facts to begin with to decide to vote, to impeach. So I don't know. We'll see. I think that I don't know. Like I don't know how else to speak about this without saying that I have no faith in this particular process. Um, so I'm just trying to look at it objectively and just kind of like see where it goes, see if there's any kind of like plot twist that'll come in at some point during this. Um, but I don't really foresee, even if he were to be impeached, have to I have to assume that the Republicans will do whatever they can to make sure that whatever punishment he faces is going to be light anyways. So he'll be cushioned from that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that they're putting on it's going to be a good show. I wish that he was also going to testify, only because I think it would be ridiculous and he would dig himself so much in a hole, and it would be fun to see him get really riled up by them talking smack about him. But I already thought that they were not going to get it done, and then with that procedural vote that Rand Paul put forward, and then not being able to get that 17 vote threshold, I was like, yeah, it's going to happen. All signs are pointing to no. Beacon, what are your thoughts on Trump and the second impeachment shenanigans?
Um, yeah, I'm not really excited about it in the sense of positive or hopeful that there's going to be an outcome that is suitable, that is just. Um, I think that we've seen over centuries and millennia across the world that white privilege is a hell of a thing, and I think that he's going to be able to use that privilege among thousands of other privileges that he has to escape any form of quote unquote punishment. So there's that, and I think that is both attributable to Republicans and the Democrats, right? The Republicans are going to let him off the hook, and frankly, I think that the Democrats will let him off the hook as well. But the biggest stumbling block, of course, is that there's no chance that they're going to have the votes. I think that we talked about this before, that really the only possibility is that if he is like preventing them access to money from their donors, like the Koch brothers or someone else, if that is threatened, then sure, they might, vote to, to fully impeach him. I don't know. But yeah, I think that the biggest thing that they have going against them this time around is that he's not in office. And so there's less momentum, there's less urgency for something to get done in a particular manner of time. It's just like, we have time, the new president's doing his thing, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, I have no idea how it's going to go, but I highly doubt that it's going to result in any form of consequence for Trump.
Yeah. Again, all signs point to no. It doesn't look like they're going to get it done. And the only reason why I hope that they would be able to get done was that they would strip him of being able to run again in 2024. They would strip him of anything that he, is able to access from his benefits, both his pension, the amount of money they give him for staff annually, all that stuff. But it doesn't look like it's going to happen. It does look like it's going to be good TV for a little bit while it's running. But mostly it looks like it's going to get in the way of the Senate doing any kind of business. At least, it'll limit the amount of business that they're able to handle in any given day, which is like all of Biden's confirmations and for his cabinet. And then this 1.9 trillion relief package that they're trying to get through. So we can segue right into that. The Democrats this past week set it up so that they can go it alone without the Republicans, and without having to do that 60 vote filibuster, so that they can do it on their own and try to pass it, can't speak, try to pass it without Republican support. The Republicans did send a contingency of like, I think it was 10 senators or something like that, 10 Republicans, aides, that went to the White House. They did meet with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to talk about a much watered down, reduced relief package, which I think was like 600 million, as opposed to the 1.9 billion or 1.9 trillion. And so, let's talk about this relief package, because it's been a year almost, or it has been a year, and the U.S. government has only given, what is it, one $1,000 check and one $600 check to all of, or the majority of the people that live in the U.S. that either file taxes or set it up so that they can receive the relief. And then they're still, so a year later, they're still trying to have a conversation of how to provide aid to the people that live in this country that right now are struggling with evictions, mortgages, basic necessities, food, medical care, and still dealing with COVID-19, which is still tearing majority communities of color apart. And you know how they can't get it done, even right now that they control the executive branch, both houses, or the House and the Senate in Congress. They're still putzing around trying to figure out what to do, how to do it, and what form the relief package is going to take. And so, you know, I think it's kind of funny to see these memes on social media where people are like, run me that money, and it's like Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. But it's also like real life, like, what the fuck are y'all doing to support the people that are in need right now? Because the former administration and the U.S. government, which like surrounds itself around capitalism, has been screwing over the people in this country for a year now as COVID-19 ravages it. So, Vega, we can start with you. What are your thoughts on them trying to go it alone, and the fact that we're still here, we're still talking about it, no actions being taken, we're still just talking about it?
It's incredibly frustrating. I think that going it alone is going to be the only smart way to do it, especially since most of the, in fact, what is it? None of the, no, 10 Republicans voted, or are saying that they're in support of this relief bill, but that's not enough in order to pass. So I think it's the only viable approach for the Democrats. Um, Although, yes, it is really frustrating in hearing them speak about how much this is important to the American people and debating that back and forth. Meanwhile, we have so many crises happening right now that are financial based that could be alleviated a little bit with some government assistance. But of course, you know, they're always going to debate giving money to their actual base, to people as opposed to the people who actually pay them. So it's annoying for them to have to speak of things like, oh, well, what about the national debt and this and that? And it's like, hey, guess what? You're not going to have an economy if people can't put money into it to begin with. So I don't, on a logical standpoint, I don't understand why this is such a hard conversation, how a hard fight that they need to have. But then at the same time, you know, considering that most of them still are wishy-washy on whether or not to take away from entitlements and stuff like that, they're willing to screw over people because to them it's just all about career moves and not actual aid. So it's it's like being out directly outside of a room, hearing people talk crap about you all the time, and watching it in from the windows, and they take a look at you, and they know that you're there, but they're just gonna still keep doing it. And all you want to do is just smash the glass and just choke them all out until they give you what you are due. So I don't know what they expect is going to come out of this. I don't know if Like, I don't know what the political play is here. Like, I don't understand why, when it's something that is so popular, even amongst Republicans, you know? So I don't know. I guess I'm too much of a leftist or liberal to say, hey, maybe we should help people out, make sure that they're not, at risk of losing their homes, at not being able to eat, at not being able to pay their bills. Um, it's crazy to think that it's crazy to say that that should be a priority.
Yeah, I think what's also interesting to me is that this is attached to so many different things, right? They made all these essential workers when COVID-19 first happened, and like grocery store clerks, baggers, manufacturers, anybody that's like a truck driver that was like doing that, food industry folks, they were required to like go and work, and a lot of them got COVID-19. There are a lot of people that died because they had to go to work, and a lot of them got like bumped up their hourly rate by like $4, and that was only during like the crisis, and then it went away. People got increased hours, but that did not change that they were still struggling because perhaps the secondary income person that had income in the household wasn't there, or they were a one-person income and they had kids at home because their school went virtual and they had to pay for childcare. They had to figure out childcare, or because public transportation was running at such limited rates, or you were scared to take public transportation that you had to increase the amount of money you spend on transportation. And so there were so many different factors, and business was impacted. People were impacted. People were struggling. Food pantries across the U.S. increased by 50% the amount of people that would go to them, and that's new people on top of the people that were already consistently going to get assistance and support. And so there were so many factors that went into this, but we're here still a year later, and all they've given is $1,600 for 12 months. That's a little over $100 a month for people to figure out how to pay a rent or pay mortgage, pay for groceries, and pay for basic necessities. And for a while there, internet and stuff was not getting cut off because of the COVID-19 pandemic, but some of those things are over in certain states. And so people have to start paying for their internet, or people got bills that backed up because of COVID-19. And there was like this grace period where you didn't have to pay it immediately, but now all of that shit's ending. And it's also tied into this like idea that Biden is already like starting to walk back on a lot of the promises that he made when he was a candidate. And you see all of these people that are experiencing this frustration or this shock, like Biden and Harris are now in office and I still don't have a $1,400 or $2,000 stimulus check, and all they're doing is talking about it. And I think that the political play, Vega, I think is to watch people suffer and have people be in this state where they need something, right? They're needing some kind of financial assistance, and they're playing it off like the Republicans don't want to play ball. They want to lowball the people. We're doing everything we can. Now we're going to go through the steps necessary so we can do it on our own. And then bam, they're going to be like, there's this $1,400 check. And even that has already strayed a little bit. The Democrats or Biden has said that he's willing to negotiate on how those $1,400 checks out and who they go out to. And so I think that it's a lot of the same thing that Democrats have been doing forever. And I hate to use this analogy, but like they like dangle the piece of fruit in front of your face and you're really hungry and you're like, I really want that piece of fruit. And then they just keep dragging you along until they give you a little bit of the piece of fruit. And then by the time you get there, the fruit's spoiled. It's no good anymore. And like you end up getting fucked over all over again. So I think that it's absolutely fucking ridiculous. It's absolutely fucking shameful. And it's a lot of the shit that people that are really liberal and progressive have been saying, that Kamala and Biden being in the White House was like going to be minimal changes. If you notice, a lot of the stuff that Biden has started to do has all been through executive order. And then some of the things that he has not done that he can do he has not done it through executive order. He said he was going to cancel.
Yeah, what happened on?
Go ahead.
Yes, student loan debt. Loan debt. Like he said on day one, I'm going to sign this. Hey, dude, it's been like a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
He said from the beginning of his campaign that nothing was going to fundamentally change. So to be surprised, like how can we be surprised at that?
Yep.
If he flat out just told us that. But then the other thing too is, for a lot of them, so the core of conservative ideology is, well, and I'm just being kind of facetious, but also kind of serious here, is if it didn't happen to me, it doesn't exist. So on top of all of that, they also have no concept of what it is to feel like to struggle. So of course, there's not going to be any urgency like there was to, back in 2008 and 9, to bail out all these banks and big corporations, right? Um, because to them, that's something that'll directly affect them. This, kind of like what you were saying, it kind of helps them for people to be kind of like in need of politicians to kind of come in and save their life. But it's just frustrating. It's just frustrating.
I mean, imagine needing to pay bills and to pay your rent or to pay your mortgage, and then hearing this like very much like tailored and well written message coming from the Democrats and the Democratic Party about how they're the ones that are pushing forward help. And then you do get a $1,400 check, and then you're like, oh, they did it. They did it to help me. But really, they didn't do shit. They just held out longer, and like, you're still in a shitty place and a shitty situation. Beacon, what are your thoughts on them trying to go it alone and all of this nonsense on like not being able to get shit done yet?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a couple of different aspects that y'all have covered quite a bit of. I think that in terms of them going alone, I'm totally fine with that because uh, bipartisan is bullshit in so many different ways. When it comes to okay, so the $1,000 check, the $600 check, that wouldn't have been enough if COVID lasted for like 2 months. Like if you had all these people out of work for 2 months and all you did was give them $1,600, that still wouldn't have been enough. And now it's almost a year later, right? Um, and part of the reason why nothing has happened in the past year is because Republicans control the Senate, and they didn't want to pass anything that was actually beneficial to people. So, like the people that you literally spent an entire campaign cycle railing against, saying these people aren't wanting to give you money. Then once you're in power, you turn around like, well, we got to wait until they come on board. Like, what the fuck? They're the ones that have been holding guns to Americans' heads for however many years, and you're wanting to get their bipartisan support? Fuck out of here. So I'm totally fine with them going it alone. If you have the votes, if you're able to pass something with 50 votes and you have Kamala do her thing, go for it. Do that as much as fucking possible. Don't wait around. And then, if you're able to pass something, if you're able to pass COVID relief, if you're able to pass all these different things, spend the next 2 years campaigning against all the Republicans that didn't support any of those things. Like, what, like, are you going to, like, would you rather spend the next 2 years being like, well, we tried getting bipartisan support and we didn't, or look at all the things that we did and look at all the Republicans that didn't vote for them? Like, to me, one of those is a better messaging for the next 2 years, but whatever. Um, in terms of, the actions that they took, the relief itself, um, obviously we know it's not enough. And I think that if there's any Democrats that are in the House or in the Senate that are patting themselves on the back for getting an extra $1,400, especially when you had a lot of Democrats, especially the ones in Georgia, that were like $2,000 check, vote for us, you get a $2,000 check. That brought down a
Mm-hmm.
1,400. So
Mm-hmm.
they shouldn't be patting themselves on the back for that. They are not like, their lives are not at all impacted if there's an extra $1,400 in their bank account or not. So they look at that like, oh, great, that's enough money. They'll be fine, right? It's like that Arrested Development meme, like, how much could a banana cost? $10? They just do not have any concept of understanding what things cost and actually, how people are actually living and how people are actually trying to live over the past year that COVID has been going on. So I I want them to do things on their own to get the 50 votes and have Kamala put her deciding vote. But I also just don't want them to get complacent and think that, they're are saviors or something like that. I want them to push for more, especially Biden. Okay, so you brought up the whole executive orders. Like, I I could be wrong, but I don't think that there's a limit per day of executive orders that you can do. Like, maybe they just didn't have enough folders, and so they're limited by the amount of folders that they have to do executive orders. But like, do more, do more. Get these bills in the Senate, in the House. Like, do more. I'm sorry, but like all the liberal pundits over the past year have been saying like, hey, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. We could do two things at the same time. I hope that the Democrats in office are actually able to do two things at once too. Do the impeachment thing. That's great. But also pass things that actually are going to benefit people. Especially starting with the COVID relief. And don't walk back your own fucking plan. Like, don't walk back the plan and like restrict who actually can be eligible for it. You're arguing against yourselves. You have the 50 votes. Why are you walking it back? Like, you're talking yourself out of it. It's like going to a car dealership and buying a car, and like the salesman is like, trying to give you a discount. You're like, no, I want to pay full price. Like, the fuck? What are you doing?
But see, to your point, Beacon, like that would require the Democratic Party to actually be an oppositional party to the Republicans. When in reality, they're just kind of like they're essentially the same party, just supporting what benefits them from just two different angles. And that's really the ultimate issue here. It's they don't want to use those tactics because they don't want to win. All they want to do is to make sure that everything just continues happening the way it is because it's benefiting them at the end of the day. Like yeah.
Well, I mean, like, yeah, you can look at political parties over the centuries and like seeing the very, very tiny amount of daylight that's between the two dominant political parties through the past several centuries of American history. Like, so often they're basically the exact same, except you had like one senator or whatever that got pissed off at another senator. He's like, fuck it, I'm making my own party. Right? Like, they're basically all the same, and they all believe that so many of the same different things. It's just that they figured out that if I do this thing slightly different, I can be in power and I can,
Right.
Get money, get financing, blah 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 blah. So,
Right.
yeah, I wish that Democrats were actually about something and actually did shit. Like, oh God, I am so not concerned isn't the right word, but so the next 4 years are going to be interesting. Like the next four, because Democrats have spent the past 4 years, talking shit about Trump and talking about all the things that they would do or could do if they were in power. And, especially in the next 2 years, they have all the power. So I hope that there actually is something that gets done. And I like, if they don't actually get shit done in the next 2 years or the next 4 years, like, how many of us millennials are already disaffected from politics, let alone the Democratic Party itself? Like, we're all like, millennials as a generation keep on getting more and more leftist as time goes on. Like, I don't think that Democrats can continue to count on our vote for decades to come. It's not necessarily that millennials are all of a sudden going to become Trumpist Republicans, but in the sense that I think that millennials, leftist millennials, are going to want something different, something else. And I don't know. I mean, there's got to be something else. There's got to be something else
There
other than
is
fucking Biden, Schumer, and Pelosi. My God.
There is. It's just the issue is, again, like, all they know how to do is talk about what they would do if they had power. And when they actually have power, they do nothing with it. And so people vote them out. And so then they spend the next couple of years complaining about the fact of, if I had power, this is what I do for you. And it's just a non-stop cycle that just doesn't amount, just essentially just keeps making our situations worse. So, like, I think to your point of millennials and turning left, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that because of social media, because of technology and all this stuff, we're able to see these things happen in real time and just see just how ineffective this entire thing is. and feel even more frustrated being able to see everybody's struggle and compare that to the inaction of both of the Democrats and the obstruction of the Republicans.
You okay?
Yeah. Hello?
Oh, you
They're
cut
on
out there
mute
for a
now.
minute.
Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry.
It cut out like in a moment we were holding your throat like you were something had happened. I was like, oh no.
I just cleared my throat. What the hell?
Okay.
I gotta see what you say.
What were you saying, Beacon?
Sorry?
Did
No,
you
I
say
was just
something?
joking. Like I wouldn't. Yeah, I was just worried that they were gonna like die on live.
Yeah, that's what I was worried about. I was like,
that.
I don't have anyone's emergency contact information. I wouldn't even know how to get to Vega. Jeez. Note to self: get emergency contacts for the people that are live streaming with you. Yeah, I agree. I feel like if they're gonna be bold and they're gonna really be like, they're gonna take the stance of like, we're gonna go it alone and we're gonna do whatever it takes, and whatever it is that we need to do, we're gonna get it done so that we can get the people the support that they need. Then I say do it. Don't fucking play games. Don't drag it out. Don't make it something that you're gonna use in the future to like blast on campaign announcements. Like, don't do that. Actually govern and do stuff to support the people. Be bold. Take as many executive orders and throw them out there as you can. Get the people the support that they need. And we're all about abolishing the police, overthrowing the government, and starting a revolution. And there is a war on Christmas actively happening. Oh, and we're anti JLo. Let's not forget that we're not. We're anti JLo and A-Rod.
Here's the difference. Here's the difference between us and Democrats. We're actually making things happen, though. We are actively warring against Christmas. We are actively warring against JLo. We're getting shit done. We have results.
Were you gonna say something, Vega?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I was just making funny comments there.
I thought you had a new slogan for us to go with.
Oh no! Oh no! The only thing was that I'm pretty sure the JLo fans are all gonna come across this video and kill me. Like, I swear, I don't hate her. I was just talking shit. I just don't particularly care for her music.
As a good queer person would, we were just talking shit. We keep it moving after we talk our shit.
Right.
So let's move into COVID-19. COVID-19 variants are continuing to start, or they're starting to take flight here in the U.S. The South Africa variant is, there was a study released today that it is very prevalent in the U.S. and that the two COVID vaccines right now from Moderna and Pfizer are less effective at prevention with that variant. What I wanted to talk about though, and that is important, and there's still 400,000 plus deaths right now. They're estimating that they are going to actually see the 500 to 600,000 figure. That is the number that like Trump said would never happen during the last year in his administration. But the studies are actively showing that we may actually reach those numbers, which is tragic. What I wanted to talk about though is the vaccine rollout chaos that I have firsthand experience and that I have read about, and that's going on all over the country. So both my parents, I'm happy to say that both my parents received their first dose of the Moderna vaccine last week, and that was a really amazing and beautiful moment because I want to make sure that my parents are as safe as possible, but also because my parents are both Mexican immigrants, and they're non-English speakers, and I wanted to and they both are, believe it or not, my parents are both in their 70s. They both are active on Facebook, and so they were posting about having received their first dose. And for me, that was important because there's a lot of folks out there, especially in the Latino community, that are not going to take the vaccine or have not heard information about the vaccine, or they're skeptical about the vaccine. And so it gave me all sorts of good feels in my heart to see that my parents got their first dose, but that they were also informing their community about having received the first dose. And so that was a beautiful moment. What I will say is that getting them the appointment to get the first dose was an absolute nightmare. We have 5 boys in my family. There's 5 brothers of us. All of us were actively every day attempting to get an appointment from my parents, and the city of Chicago has done a completely shit job. The Chicago Department of Public Health has not set out an actual standard. They're like, oh, well, you can check every day and there are appointments sometimes and you can sign up at this website, but then you go to the website and you go look for an appointment and there are no appointments available, and it tells you to go to the pharmacies because they might have them, or to the grocery stores which might have them, and then you go to their website and they say they're not available. And so it was a whole 5 days since they announced that they were going to allow the 65 and older crowd to get the vaccine here in Illinois, before we were able to get them an appointment. And that was only because 5 of us were actively online through different sources trying to get them an appointment. And at the end of the day, we had to get them an appointment through a private health provider. It wasn't even through any of the clinics, the Chicago Department of Public Health. It wasn't through any of the Illinois vaccination sites. It was through a private vendor that got access to the vaccine. And that's how we were able to set up an appointment. And so I want to talk about that because it's very real. All across the country right now, people are experiencing the fact that they don't know how to make an appointment. There are no appointments available, and that the vaccination doses are really, really scarce out there. I don't remember the exact figures, but there was a report out that they have lost track of a whole bunch of doses of vaccines that got sent out during the Trump administration, and they just can't account for them. They don't know where they are. Out of Philadelphia, I think there was an organization where the CEO of a nonprofit that had the week before they started vaccination on site turned his nonprofit into a for-profit corporation and was taking vaccine homes at the end of the day and turning people that were in line, and had all these people schedule appointments. So people are experiencing chaos. They're not experiencing a structured way to set up appointments to get the vaccination. And the federal government response, which is it started with the Trump administration. It's now switched over to the Biden administration, but even in liberal cities, and I use that term loosely, liberal progressive cities like Chicago, it was a pain in the ass to figure out how to even get my parents an appointment. And both my parents, my dad is 78. Oh man, someone's gonna send me a really nasty text after this because I don't know their exact ages, but they were both in their upper 70s, and they both have pre-existing conditions. And it was a complete, utter pain in the ass. There was confusion, and I tried to call CDPH and I couldn't get an answer because there are long wait times. There are people are not in offices, so you weren't staffed. People are working from home. It was just impossible. I couldn't find answers online, and I couldn't get a hold of a live person to give me answers. And so I want to talk about this because I know that Vega got their first dose of did you get the Moderna or the Pfizer?
I think I got Pfizer.
So Vega got their first dose of Pfizer, and I know that Beacon was actively working to... Oh, you got your first dose as well?
Oh, no, I was applauding Vega.
Oh.
No, I was just applauding Vega.
Okay. But I know that Beacon's actively working or waiting for the vaccine to become available so that they can also take it. And so I just wanted to talk about it because it's very real. There are people out there that, including some very close people that I loved very dearly, at the beginning of this, were very anti-vaccination. They were afraid. They didn't trust it. They thought that it came out too soon. And now, after witnessing that, what the vaccination has done across the globe and the impact that it's having and the protection that it does offer you, they're now in this category of I want to get vaccinated. But now they're in this place of well, you're in a holding pattern because You don't know when you're going to get the vaccination. You don't know where you could get the vaccination. And you don't even know
Mhm.
something as simple as how you can sign up to get an appointment for the vaccination. Just last week, at the end of the week, the city of Chicago finally announced that they were partnering with some private company so that you can go to an actual website that's set up to get an appointment for vaccination. But even that has obstacles for people that have technology literacy issues, and that, or that people that don't have access to technology. And so I just wanted to get thoughts and opinions, and I also want to hear, like, Vega, you're still here. So for those folks that have this, like, this legitimate fear that the vaccine's gonna take you down, here's Vega live and streaming and laughing and, like, still on their mission to, and J-Lo and Christmas and the police and the U.S. government. And so I just want to talk about all
In
of
that
those
order.
things. That's right. That's right. I want to talk about all those things, but also the chaos that people are experiencing with COVID and the attempt to get vaccinated right now. So Vega, we can start with you.
Oh yeah, I mean, especially with when it comes to kind of like the outreach to the communities, like it's just a case of having a way to combat like all the negative talk that's being spread on social media, to help educate folks. Like, well, for the people that say like, oh, it's too quick. Oh no, they've been developing this kind of vaccine for a while, for a few years actually. Like being able to introduce little bits of education. If we had a competent government, then that would have been taken care of. If we had a government that cared about reaching out to poor people and people of color, we would have had that taken care of, but clearly we don't have that. Here in New York, I can say for me, the process was it was only easy after I had asked a coworker some questions. Because the links that was provided by my job and then the link that was provided by the city, none of them worked for me. And then my friend was like, "Oh, if you go to this website and go to this link, and then you make sure you put in information like this and answer this question, then you'll get an appointment." And that's exactly how I did it. Which is, that's me, knowing how to, check and use the computer and stuff like that. Like for folks that may not be so where using the computer doesn't come as easily to them, it's going to be difficult to do that kind of a thing. But it's like that on purpose. There was a controversy here in New York City, where one of our larger neighborhoods of color, Washington Heights, was having a situation where the number of black and brown folks that were getting the vaccine was extremely minimal, but the amount of people coming from other states driving into this neighborhood, particularly middle class white folks that were getting the vaccine in Washington Heights, like they were the majority of the people, like a good, I don't know if the number was like almost like around three-quarters of the people that were getting vaccines in this one site were white from another state. And again, so how are they getting access to that? How are you reaching to the community that's immediately right there? Like there's so many questions that's being brought up because this rollout has been so poorly. Well, it wasn't planned. Like we know from Biden's first weekend that his team came out and said that there was no plan in terms of vaccine rollout. So we're dealing with the aftermath of a um, of a cabinet of an administration that had no plan in place for this, um, with already having all the misinformation around COVID itself. So it's just complicated on top of complicated. And since we haven't been addressing like the miseducation since the beginning, something like a vaccine is going to be the like where people draw their line. There's already so much anti-vaccination conspiracies and sentiments and stuff like that amongst many, many different kinds of people. So you combine that with the misinformation about COVID. You combine that with an ineffective administration. Of course, people are going to across the board be suspicious of it, and then the people that have more access to information are going to look at that and say, well, that now we can slide in and get our own vaccinations while everybody else is fighting it. As we tell them that this is unsafe and raise questions, we can go ahead and get our children vaccinated and don't have to worry about that while the rest of the poors die. So it's, I mean, like a lot of other things, it's purposeful. Um, and it's made to benefit the rich, powerful white folks that, want to make sure that they live. And, who cares if like a couple 100,000 other people die if it means that my family will be safe.
Yeah, and the studies that have come out already have shown that there are disparities, and the folks that are getting it are white folk, and that the communities of color
Mm-hmm.
are being left behind. Beacon, what are your thoughts on the whole COVID-19, the vaccination process, and the chaos around the confusion to get vaccinated?
I mean, it is kind of consistent with this entire process. The entire past year has been a little bit of confusion after confusion. Though I will say there is a like this was obvious, but it's still ironic, of course, that the politicians that were super anti-masking and anti-COVID are like first in line to sign up for a vaccine. Um, I think that the people that have been the loudest about being like that, anti-science and anti-COVID, I think that they should be the ones that are last in line to get a vaccine. That being said, they're probably also the most dangerous. So I'm annoyed that they're getting a vaccine, but also I'm glad because that makes it a little bit safer for me being around, those types of people. So what can you do? Um, there's definitely been a confusion. I'm very excited for my parents to finally get a vaccine whenever that happens. We kind of had to bully my mom into wanting to get a vaccine because she was very much against it. And we're like, okay, but do you want to see your kids? Do you want to see your family? And she's like, I guess. And so now she's, waiting. I guess in her county, they're going from like 85 and older to 75 and older, down to 65 and older. So she just has to wait until it's her age group. But, you know, it seems like there has to be a better way to get distribution and to be able to get better access. But um, I don't know. It seems like it's also somewhat consistent with just a lot of things about American life. The one thing that I will say, looking forward into the future, that I'm not looking forward to is Republicans using this as an example of government dysfunction as a reason why there shouldn't be universal health care.
Yeah,
Because
right.
anytime that the government is slow on something or is not able to do something, Republicans always use it as a reason for quote unquote small government and eliminating government services. So, of course, they want to push back against universal health coverage. They want to push back against any form of a safety net, any form of services like SNAP or unemployment, et cetera. And that's like they're getting hard about this entire situation. Um, but of course, oftentimes when the Republicans do that, they're usually responsible for a slowdown, right? Whether it be like states that are like, no, I don't want government help. Hey, the government's bad because they didn't help us, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'm definitely not looking forward to that in 2023 or whatever the next 2 years of election cycles are. But we know that's already going to happen. But I think at the end of the day, I think something that we said about earlier is that it would be nice if Democrats actually ran on like these are things that we did to improve people, right? Whether it's using like, hey, we have the 50 votes, fuck it, we're just going to do as much as we can. The executive orders, fuck it, we're going to do as much as we can. To then be able to say these are all the different things that we did, so keep us in power because they impacted your lives in all these different areas, rather than well, we tried to get you vaccines. We tried to get you a COVID relief package. We tried blah 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 blah. So hopefully they actually figure out how to make it work and actually get the vaccines out because I know I'm waiting for one. I know I'm ready for one. Like, we're Duke and I, my fiance and I, we're talking about our planning our wedding for next year, and we really hope that things are all good to go by next year because we'd really like to have our wedding. And hopefully we're just not in this endless cycle of stupidity. So
Yeah. I really hope that they get their act together and that they're able to figure out how to first figure out where these missing vaccines are, that they don't know where they are. And then secondly is that they're able to set out a process for getting signed up to have an appointment for the vaccine, and also prioritizing the appropriate folks so that they are. Because the other thing that I've been reading is that there are these vaccines that are left over at the end of the day, and that anybody can walk in and say that they're an essential worker and that they won't ask any questions and they'll get vaccinated. Great for that person, right? Because they probably want to get vaccinated. Shitty because there was probably somebody out there that really needed it, that's in one of the vulnerable populations. And then the other thing too is that, yeah, there are these folks that are not members of the community that they're designed for, that are taking advantage and showing up and getting vaccinated, while communities that are getting decimated by COVID-19 are struggling. So I really do hope they get their shit together. We were going to talk about white extremism, but I just got a message and there's something I have to go and take care of. So we're going to have to leave it there. And, white extremism isn't going anywhere. It's been around since this country was founded. So I'm sure that we will talk a lot about it. But we will be back next week and we'll talk about everything that happened in Impeachment Part 2, Donald Trump, and whatever updates we have for you all. So thank you so much for your time, your labor. I'm going to go and try not to die with a potential rodent in my apartment.
Oh,
so,
no!
Yeah. I need to put on my mask butch, face.
But
yeah, I know. Oh yeah. Yes, I also meant to point out earlier, I am loving that shirt. Hold on, let's zoom in on this. Yes, mask for mask. I'm there. All right, folks. Thank you so much.
I love this shirt.
It's a great shirt. We'll be back next week. Thank you for joining us. Have a good rest of your weekend. And for those of you watching the Super Bowl, I hope you're having fun with that.
I hope
good
your
night.
team wins.
Yes, go sports. Have a good night. Have a good weekend, everyone.